The rain pounded the streets of Brooklyn like it was trying to drown the city. Each drop a reminder of the chaos that had driven Eli to open his apartment door at 2 a.m. There, soaked to the bone, stood Ryan, his best friend. His straight best friend. With a duffel bag slung over his shoulder and a look that screamed he'd lost everything. "I didn't know where else to go," Ryan muttered, his voice barely audible over the storm. Eli hadn't seen Ryan in months. Not since the fight that had left them both raw. Words like knives they couldn't take back. They'd been inseparable since high school Ryan. The charming jock with a grin that could melt anyone. And Eli, the quiet artist who'd known he was gay since he was 13 but never dared tell Ryan. That night, as Ryan stood shivering in the hallway, Eli's heart twisted with a dangerous mix of relief and dread. He let Ryan in. Of course. What else could he do? The apartment was small. A one-bedroom haven Eli had carved out in Bed-Stuy. Walls covered in his sketches and shelves stuffed with books. Ryan dropped his bag by the door, water pooling on the hardwood, and collapsed onto the couch without a word. Eli tossed him a towel, trying not to notice the way Ryan's wet shirt clung to his shoulders. "What happened?" Eli asked, keeping his voice steady, though his pulse wasn't cooperating. Ryan didn't answer right away. He rubbed the towel over his dark hair, his jaw tight. "Jess kicked me out," he finally said, eyes fixed on the floor. Jess, Ryan's girlfriend of 2 years. The one Eli had always envied. Not for her beauty, but for the way Ryan looked at her. "She said I wasn't present. Said I've been distant. I don't know. Man. It's all a mess." Eli nodded, unsure what to say. He'd always been the listener, the one Ryan came to when life got heavy. But this felt different. There was a weight in Ryan's voice, a crack in his usual confidence that made Eli want to reach out, to fix it, even if it meant reopening old wounds. He grabbed a couple of beers from the fridge, handed one to Ryan, and sat on the floor across from him, the coffee table a flimsy barrier between them. "You can stay as long as you need," Eli said, the words slipping out before he could overthink them. Ryan looked up, his green eyes catching the dim light from the lamp. For a moment, Eli thought he saw something gratitude. Maybe. Or something deeper, but Ryan just nodded and took a long swig of his beer. They talked for hours, the storm outside fading into a dull hum. Ryan rambled about Jess, about his job at the bar that barely paid the bills, about how he felt like he was running in place. Eli listened, but his mind kept drifting to the Pasto late-night drives in Ryan's old pickup, to the time Ryan hugged him after a bad breakup, and Eli had to pretend it didn't mean everything. By 4 a.m., Ryan was slurring, half drunk and half exhausted, sprawled across the couch like it was his own. Eli grabbed a blanket and draped it over him, his fingers brushing Ryan's arm for a split second. He froze, heart hammering, but Ryan didn't stir. Eli retreated to his bedroom, leaving the door cracked, and lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He told himself it was just one night. Ryan would crash. They'd talk in the morning, and everything would go back to normal. But deep down, Eli knew normal was a lie he'd been telling himself for years. The next morning, Eli woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Ryan rummaging in the kitchen. He stumbled out, bleary-eyed, and found Ryan holding a mug, looking more rested than he had any right to. "Made you some," Ryan said, nodding toward the pot. "Figured I owed you." Eli took the mug, their fingers brushing. And he cursed himself for noticing. They sat at the tiny kitchen table. The silence heavy, but not uncomfortable. Ryan talked about his plainer lack of one. He'd look for a new place. Maybe crash with another friend. But Eli waved it off. "Stay here," he said. Too quickly. "It's fine. I've got the space." Ryan raised an eyebrow, a smirk tugging at his lips. "You sure? I don't want to cramp your style." Eli laughed, but it came out forced. "What style?" "I draw. I read. I sleep. You're not exactly interrupting a party." Ryan stayed. Days turned into a week. Then 2. Eli's apartment, once a quiet sanctuary, became a shared space. Ryan's socks on the floor, his laughter filling the rooms, his presence a constant pull on Eli's carefully guarded heart. They fell into a rhythm, cooking late-night tacos, watching old movies, arguing over music. It was like high school again, but sharper, more dangerous. Because Eli couldn't ignore the way Ryan's casual touches lingered, a hand on his shoulder, a knee bumping his under the table. One night, after too many beers and a marathon of cheesy action flicks, Ryan fell asleep on the couch, his head lolling against Eli's shoulder. Eli didn't move, didn't breathe, afraid to break the moment. He studied Ryan's face, the freckles across his nose, the faint scar above his eyebrow from a high school fight. He wanted to memorize it, to hold on to this before it inevitably slipped away. When Ryan stirred, his arm slid across Eli's waist, pulling him closer in his sleep. Eli's heart stopped. This wasn't a casual touch, wasn't a mistake. Ryan was holding him, warm and solid, like they were meant to be. Eli didn't sleep that night, torn between panic and a reckless hope that maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something real. The morning after Ryan held him, Eli woke to an empty couch and the sound of the shower running. His chest ached with a mix of relief and disappointment, relief that he wouldn't have to face Ryan's reaction, disappointment that the moment had passed without a word. He busied himself making breakfast, cracking eggs with more force than necessary, trying to drown out the memory of Ryan's arm around him. Ryan emerged, hair damp, wearing one of Eli's old band tees. "Smells good," he said, sliding into a chair like nothing had happened. Eli searched his face for a sign: guilt, confusion, anything but. Ryan just grabbed a piece of toast and started talking about a gig he'd picked up at a new bar. Eli nodded along, his thoughts a tangle of what-ifs. Had Ryan been too drunk to remember? Or was he pretending it didn't happen? The day passed in a blur of normalcy. Ryan left for work, and Eli buried himself in his sketchbook, drawing jagged lines that mirrored his mood. He'd always used art to process the chaos in his head. But today, every stroke felt like a confession. By evening, Ryan was back, carrying a pizza and a grin that made Eli's resolve waver. They ate on the floor, the TV droning in the background, and Eli tried to act like his world hadn't shifted. But it had. Every glance Ryan threw his way, every casual laugh, felt charged now. Eli caught himself watching Ryan too closely, the way he stretched, the way his fingers tapped the table. He hated himself for it, for letting hope creep in when he knew better. Ryan was straight. He'd dated girls his whole life. That night on the couch was a fluke, a drunken accident. Still, Eli couldn't shake the feeling that something was changing. Ryan started staying closer, sitting on the same side of the couch instead of across the room. He'd ask Eli about his art, leaning over to look at sketches with a curiosity that felt too intimate. One night, as they washed dishes side by side, Ryan's elbow brushed Eli's, and he didn't pull away. Eli's breath caught, but he kept scrubbing, afraid to acknowledge it. "Tell me about this one," Ryan said one evening, picking up a sketch of a city skyline at dusk. Eli hesitated. The drawing was personal, a memory of a night they'd spent on a rooftop in high school, talking until dawn. He hadn't meant for Ryan to see it. "It's just something I did," Eli mumbled. But Ryan kept staring, like he was seeing more than lines on paper. "You ever think about that night?" Ryan asked, his voice low. Eli froze, the air between them heavy. He wanted to ask what Ryan meant, to demand answers, but fear stopped him. Instead, he shrugged and changed the subject, hating himself for the cowardice. Weeks passed, and the tension grew. Eli caught Ryan watching him sometimes, a look in his eyes that wasn't there before searching, almost vulnerable. It made Eli reckless. One night, after a long day, they ended up at a dive bar, the kind with sticky floors and neon lights. Ryan was looser than usual, laughing louder, his hand resting on Eli's arm as he told a story. Eli let himself lean into it, let himself believe, for one stupid moment, that this could be more. They stumbled back to the apartment, tipsy and loud, and collapsed onto the couch. Ryan's head fell back, his throat exposed, and Eli had to look away. "You're a good guy, Eli," Ryan said suddenly, his words slurred but earnest. "Like, really good." Eli's heart pounded. He wanted to say something, anything, but the words stuck. Instead, he laughed it off, tossing a pillow at Ryan. "Go to sleep. Drunk." Ryan grinned, but his eyes lingered, and Eli felt the weight of it long after Ryan passed out. The next morning, Eli found a note on the counter, "Gone to work. Thanks for last night." His stomach twisted. Thanks for what? The drinks, the couch, or something else? He spent the day distracted, his sketches turning into abstract shapes that mirrored his confusion. When Ryan got home, he acted like nothing had happened. But there was a shift, small, but undeniable. He stood closer, talked softer, like he was testing the waters. Eli couldn't take it anymore. That night, as they sat on the balcony, the city sprawling below, he turned to Ryan. "What's going on with you?" he asked, his voice sharper than he meant. Ryan looked startled, then guarded. "What do you mean?" "You're different," Eli said, struggling to find the words. "Since you got here, you're not you." Ryan's jaw tightened, and for a moment, Eli thought he'd shut down. But then Ryan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know, man. I'm just figuring shit out." Eli wanted to push, to ask what that meant. But Ryan stood abruptly, muttering something about needing air. He disappeared into the apartment, leaving Eli alone with the city lights and a heart full of questions he wasn't sure he wanted answered. Eli stopped sleeping well after that night on the balcony. His dreams were a mess of Ryan's face, his voice, the way his arm had felt around him. Every morning, he'd wake up expecting Ryan to be gone. But there he was making coffee, leaving dishes in the sink, filling the apartment with a warmth that was both comfort and torture. Ryan, for his part, seemed oblivious. Or maybe he wasn't. Eli couldn't tell anymore. The signs were their lingering glances. A hand brushing Eli's back as he passed, but Ryan never acknowledged them. It was like he was caught in his own storm. And Eli was just collateral damage. One afternoon, Eli came home to find Ryan sitting on the couch, staring at his phone with a look that could only mean trouble. "Jess called," Ryan said, not looking up. Eli's stomach dropped. He hadn't thought about Jess in weeks. Hadn't wanted to. "She wants to talk. Says she misses me." Eli forced a neutral tone. "You gonna meet her?" Ryan shrugged, tossing his phone onto the coffee table. "Don't know. Part of me wants to. But I don't think I'm the same guy she dated." Eli's heart skipped, but he kept his face blank. "What's that mean?" Ryan didn't answer right away. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor like it held the answers. "I've been thinking a lot. About who I am. Who I want to be. Shit's confusing. You know." Eli didn't know. Not really. But he nodded anyway. He wanted to scream, to demand Ryan explain what was happening between them. But the words stayed locked in his throat. Instead, he grabbed his sketchbook and started drawing, letting the pencil say what he couldn't. Ryan watched, quiet. And for once, Eli didn't hide the page. The sketch was of Ryan's profile, sharp and soft at the same time, caught in a moment of doubt. When Ryan saw it, his expression shifted, like he was seeing himself for the first time. "That's how you see me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Eli's face burned. "It's just a drawing." "No, it's not," Ryan said, and the weight of his words hung between them. For a moment, Eli thought Ryan might say more, might finally break the silence that had been building for weeks. But then Ryan stood, muttering about a shower, and the moment was gone. The next day, Ryan went to meet Jess. Eli spent the hours alone, pacing the apartment, his mind a battlefield of hope and fear. When Ryan came back, he looked drained, his usual swagger gone. "How'd it go?" Eli asked, bracing himself. "She wants to try again," Ryan said, dropping onto the couch. "Says we can work it out. But I told her no." Eli's breath caught. "Why?" Ryan looked at him, really looked at him, and Eli felt exposed, like Ryan could see every secret he'd ever kept. "Because I'm not sure who I am anymore," Ryan said, "and I can't go back to pretending I do." Eli didn't know what to say, so he didn't say anything. They sat in silence, the TV flickering with some show neither of them cared about. Ryan's knee was inches from Eli's, and the space between them felt like a chasm and a lifeline all at once. The next week was a blur of tension and unspoken words. Ryan started spending more time out, picking up extra shifts at the bar, like he was avoiding something. Eli threw himself into his art, filling pages with sketches of Ryan, some angry, some tender, all too honest. He didn't show them to Ryan, but he didn't hide them either. One night, Ryan came home late, smelling of whiskey and rain. He didn't say anything, just sat next to Eli on the couch, closer than usual. Eli's heart pounded, but he kept his eyes on his book, pretending to read. Ryan's hand rested on the cushion between them, fingers brushing Eli's thigh. "Eli," Ryan said, his voice rough. Eli looked up, and the look in Ryan's eyes stole his breath raw, unguarded, like he was on the edge of something. "I need to tell you something." Eli braced himself, every nerve on fire. He wanted to run, to freeze this moment before it could break him. But Ryan didn't say anything else. Instead, he leaned forward, his hand finding Eli's, and squeezed it once, hard, before letting go. "I'm scared," Ryan whispered, and Eli realized he wasn't the only one who'd been holding his breath for weeks. Ryan's confession hung in the air, fragile and heavy, like a glass teetering on the edge of a table. Eli wanted to grab it, to hold it close, but he was terrified it would shatter. He sat frozen, Ryan's hand still warm from where it had touched his. The apartment silent except for the hum of the city outside. "Scared of what?" Eli finally asked, his voice barely steady. Ryan leaned back, running both hands through his hair, his eyes fixed on the ceiling. "Everything. Me. You. What I'm feeling." He laughed, a short, bitter sound. "I've spent my whole life thinking I had it all figured out. Girls, sports, the whole deal. But now, I don't know who I am." Eli's heart raced, a dangerous hope clawing its way up. He wanted to ask what Ryan meant by you, but the words felt too big, too risky. Instead, he said, "You don't have to have it all figured out." Ryan looked at him then, his green eyes searching Eli's face like he was looking for permission. "What if I'm figuring out something that changes everything?" Eli's throat tightened. He wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap, but fear held him back. He'd spent years loving Ryan in secret, convincing himself it was one-sided, impossible. Now, with Ryan sitting inches away, admitting he was lost, Eli felt the ground shifting beneath him. They didn't talk about it again that night. Ryan fell asleep on the couch, one arm flung over his eyes, and Eli retreated to his room, his mind a storm of questions. He didn't sleep, just lay there, replaying Ryan's words, his touch, the way his voice had cracked. The next few days were a tightrope. Ryan was quieter, more thoughtful, but he didn't pull away. If anything, he was more present, helping Eli with dishes, sitting closer during movies, his laughter softer but more genuine. Eli felt like he was drowning in it, every moment a reminder of what he wanted and what he stood to lose. One evening, they went to an art gallery where Eli's work was being shown. He hadn't wanted Ryan to come too personal, too exposed, but Ryan insisted, saying he wanted to see Eli's world. The gallery was packed, the air buzzing with pretentious chatter. But Ryan stayed close, asking questions about Eli's pieces, his pride obvious. One painting, tucked in a corner, stopped Ryan cold. It was abstract, all sharp lines and soft colors. But Eli knew what it was, a memory of them. Years ago, sitting on that rooftop, the city alive below them. Ryan stared at it, his expression unreadable, and Eli's stomach twisted. "You painted this," Ryan said, not a question. Eli nodded, his face hot. "Yeah." Ryan didn't say anything else, but he stood there longer than he needed to, like he was seeing something new. Later, as they walked home through the chilly Brooklyn night, Ryan was quiet, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. Eli wanted to fill the silence, but he didn't know how. Back at the apartment, Ryan stopped at the door, turning to face Eli. "That painting, it's us, isn't it?" Eli's heart stopped. He could lie, brush it off, but something in Ryan's eyes made him tell the truth. "Yeah, it's us." Ryan nodded, like he'd known all along. He stepped closer, so close Eli could feel the heat of him. "I don't know what I'm doing," Ryan said, his voice low, "but I know I don't want to lose you." Eli's breath hitched. He wanted to ask what that meant, to demand clarity, but Ryan's hand found his shoulder, steady and warm, and the world narrowed to that single point of contact. For a moment, they just stood there, the air thick with everything unsaid. Then Ryan pulled away, muttering something about needing to crash, and disappeared into the living room. Eli stood frozen, his heart pounding, his mind screaming at him to do something. Anything. But he didn't. He went to bed, alone, and stared at the ceiling until dawn. The next morning, Ryan was gone when Eli woke up. A note on the counter said he'd gone to the bar, but the absence felt heavier than that. Eli spent the day sketching, each stroke angrier than the last, until his hands shook. When Ryan came back, he looked tired, his usual ease replaced by something raw. "I saw Jess again," Ryan said, before Eli could ask. "She wanted closure. I gave it to her." Eli nodded, unsure what to feel. "You okay?" Ryan didn't answer right away. He sat on the couch, his head in his hands. "I told her I'm figuring myself out, that I might feel things for someone else." Eli's heart stopped. He wanted to ask, to push, but fear kept him silent. Ryan looked up, his eyes locking onto Eli's. And for the first time, Eli saw it fear. Yes, but also something else. Something that looked like love. Eli couldn't breathe. Ryan's words feel things. For someone else echoed in his head. Each syllable a spark that threatened to burn down the walls he'd built around his heart. He stood there, rooted to the spot, as Ryan watched him with an intensity that felt like a challenge. Someone else. Eli finally managed, his voice barely above a whisper. Ryan's jaw tightened, and for a moment, Eli thought he'd backtrack, laugh it off like he always did. But Ryan didn't move, didn't look away. "Yeah," he said, his voice rough. "You." The world stopped. Eli's pulse roared in his ears, drowning out the city noise, the hum of the fridge, everything. He'd dreamed of this moment, but now that it was here, it felt too big, too real. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Ryan stood, crossing the small space between them. "I'm freaking out, Eli," he said, his hands gesturing wildly, like he was trying to hold on to something solid. I've always been with girls. I thought that's who I was. But being here, with you, it's like, I don't know. It's like I'm seeing you for the first time." Eli's chest ached, a mix of joy and terror. He wanted to believe it, wanted to grab Ryan and hold on. But years of hiding his feelings made him cautious. "Ryan, you're straight," he said, the words tasting bitter. "You've always been straight." Ryan flinched, like the word was a slap. Maybe I'm not. Or maybe I don't care what I am anymore. All I know is when I'm with you, I feel right. Eli's knees went weak. He leaned against the counter, gripping the edge to steady himself. Ryan was close now. Too close. His breath warm against Eli's cheek. Say something, Ryan pleaded, his voice breaking. Please. I've loved you for years, Eli blurted, the confession tearing out of him like a wound reopening. Since high school. Every day. And I never said anything because I knew it'd ruin us. Ryan's eyes widened. A mix of shock and something softer. Something that looked like relief. You never told me, he whispered. Because you were straight, Eli said, his voice cracking. You had Jess. And I was just me. Ryan reached out, his hand hovering before settling on Eli's arm. You were never just anything. The touch was electric, and Eli couldn't stop himself. He closed the distance, his lips brushing Ryan's in a kiss that was tentative, desperate. Everything he'd held back for years. Ryan froze for a split second, and Eli's heart plummeted until Ryan kissed him back. Hard and certain, like he'd been waiting for this too. They pulled apart, breathless, foreheads pressed together. Eli's mind raced, trying to process what had just happened. Ryan laughed, a shaky sound, and Eli couldn't help but laugh too, the tension breaking like a dam. But the high didn't last. The next morning, Ryan was quiet, his eyes shadowed with doubt. Eli felt the shift immediately, a cold dread settling in his stomach. You okay? He asked, keeping his tone light. Ryan nodded, but it wasn't convincing. Just thinking. Last night was a lot. Eli's heart sank. He wanted to ask if Ryan regretted it, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, they moved through the day like nothing had happened. But the air was thick with unspoken questions. Ryan left for work early, and Eli spent the day sketching, each line a way to keep from falling apart. When Ryan came back, he was distant, his usual warmth replaced by something guarded. Eli tried to act normal, but every glance felt like a test. That night, as they sat on the couch, Ryan finally spoke. I don't know if I can do this, he said, his voice low. Not because I don't want to. Because I don't know how. Eli's chest tightened. What does that mean? It means I'm scared I'll mess this up, Ryan said, his eyes meeting Eli's. I've never felt like this before. Not with Jess. Not with anyone. But I don't know if I'm ready to be this person. Eli wanted to scream, to tell Ryan he didn't have to be anyone but himself. But he saw the fear in Ryan's eyes and knew it wasn't that simple. You don't have to decide now, Eli said, though it hurt to say it. Just don't shut me out. Ryan nodded, but the distance between them grew. Over the next few days, he was quieter, spending more time out, coming back late. Eli felt like he was losing him, piece by piece, and the worst part was knowing he couldn't stop it. Eli's apartment felt emptier, even with Ryan still there. The kiss had changed everything, but not in the way Eli had hoped. Ryan was slipping away, not physically but emotionally, his warmth replaced by a quiet that felt like rejection. Eli tried to give him space, to act like it didn't hurt. But every day was a battle against the ache in his chest. He threw himself into his art, filling sketchbooks with images he couldn't show anyone. Ryan's face. His hands. Moments they'd shared now tainted by doubt. The gallery called, saying his work was getting attention. But it felt hollow. All he could think about was Ryan, and the fear that he'd pushed too far. Too fast. One night, Ryan didn't come home. Eli waited, checking his phone, pacing the apartment until 2 a.m. When Ryan finally stumbled in, he smelled of beer and looked like he hadn't slept. "Where were you?" Eli asked, his voice sharper than he meant. "Out," Ryan said, avoiding his eyes. Needed to think. Eli's stomach twisted. "About us?" Ryan hesitated, then nodded. "I'm trying. Eli. I swear. But it's a lot." Eli wanted to yell, to demand Ryan figure it out. But he saw the exhaustion in Ryan's face and softened. "I'm not asking you to be someone you're not," he said. I need to know if you're in this or not." Ryan's eyes met his. And for a moment, Eli saw the old Ryan, the one who'd always had his back. "I don't want to hurt you," Ryan said. "But I don't know if I can be what you need." The words cut deeper than Eli expected. He nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat, and turned away. "Get some sleep," he said, retreating to his room before Ryan could see him break. The next week was torture. Ryan was polite, careful, like he was walking on glass. Eli hated it. Hated the distance. Hated himself for hoping. He started spending more time at the gallery, working on a new piece, a chaotic mix of colors that screamed everything he couldn't say. One evening, Ryan showed up at the gallery, unannounced. Eli was in the back, paint on his hands, when he saw Ryan standing by the same painting from before the one of them. "You're good at this," Ryan said, his voice soft. "Really good." Eli shrugged, wiping his hands on a rag. "It's just paint." "It's not," Ryan said, stepping closer. "It's you. And I see you now." Eli's heart pounded, but he kept his guard up. "What do you want, Ryan?" Ryan looked down, his hands fidgeting. "I talked to my brother today. Told him about us. About me." Eli's breath caught. Ryan's brother was a Marine. All macho bravado. The kind of guy who'd never understand. What did he say? He was an asshole about it, Ryan admitted, a wry smile tugging at his lips. But it felt good to say it. To be honest. Eli didn't know what to say. He wanted to hope. But he'd been burned too many times. And now? Ryan stepped closer, his hand reaching for Eli's. "I'm still scared. But I'm here. I want to try." Eli's walls cracked. Just a little. He squeezed Ryan's hand, the contact grounding him. "Okay," he said, his voice barely audible. "We'll try." They went home together, the air between them lighter but still fragile. That night, they sat on the couch, closer than they had in weeks, and Ryan's hand found Eli's again. It wasn't a promise. Not yet. But it was a start. Over the next few days, they found a new rhythm, tentative, but real. Ryan opened up more, talking about his fears, his confusion, the way he'd always felt something for Eli but never had the words. Eli listened, his heart aching with love and patience, knowing this was a journey Ryan had to take at his own pace. But the world wasn't as kind. One night, at the bar where Ryan worked, a coworker saw them together, Ryan's hand brushing Eli's back. The next day, the whispers started snide comments, pointed looks. Ryan brushed it off, but Eli saw the tension in his jaw, the way his laugh didn't reach his eyes. Eli wanted to protect him, to shield him from the world's judgment. But he knew Ryan had to face it himself. All he could do was be there, steady and sure, as Ryan navigated the truth of who he was. The bar incident lingered, a shadow neither of them could shake. Ryan started coming home later, his smiles forced, his eyes carrying a weight Eli couldn't reach. Eli tried to give him space, but every day felt like a step closer to losing him. He poured his fear into his art, creating pieces that were raw, jagged, full of love and pain. One night, Ryan came home with a split lip, blood crusted on his chin. Eli was on his feet in an instant, his heart in his throat. What happened? Ryan waved it off, collapsing onto the couch. Some guy at the bar said some shit. I said some shit back. Eli grabbed a wet cloth, his hands shaking as he cleaned Ryan's lip. About us. Ryan's eyes met his, and for a moment, Eli thought he'd lie. But Ryan nodded. Yeah. He saw us the other night. Didn't like it. Eli's stomach churned. He wanted to rage, to find the guy and make him pay. But Ryan's hand on his wrist stopped him. It's fine, Ryan said, though his voice was tired. I handled it. It's not fine, Eli snapped, his fears spilling over. You shouldn't have to deal with this. Ryan's expression softened. Neither should you. They sat in silence, the cloth still in Eli's hand, Ryan's blood staining the fabric. Eli wanted to say something, to fix this, but all he could do was hold Ryan's gaze, hoping it was enough. The next day, Ryan quit the bar. He didn't tell Eli until he got home, tossing his apron onto the coffee table like it was nothing. I'm done with that place, he said, his tone final. Gonna find something else. Eli didn't push, but he saw the strain in Ryan's shoulders, the way he avoided talking about it. He knew Ryan was running not from him, but from the world that was making this harder than it should be. They started going out less, spending evenings in the apartment, building a fragile bubble where they could be themselves. Ryan was more open now, touching Eli's hand, kissing him softly when he thought no one was watching. Each moment was a gift, but Eli couldn't shake the fear that it was temporary. One night, Ryan suggested they go to a queer bar in the village, a place Eli had mentioned once. I want to see your world, Ryan said, his smile nervous but genuine. Eli hesitated, but the hope in Ryan's eyes won him over. The bar was loud, colorful, alive with people who didn't care who you loved. Eli felt at home, but he watched Ryan closely, searching for signs of discomfort. To his surprise, Ryan relaxed, laughing with strangers, his arm around Eli's waist like it was the most natural thing. They danced, clumsy and tipsy, and for the first time, Eli let himself believe this could work. Ryan's hands were on his hips, his smile wide, and when he leaned in to kiss Eli in the middle of the dance floor, the world fell away. But the high didn't last. On their way home, A group of guys shouted slurs from across the street, their voices cutting through the night. Ryan tensed, his hand tightening on Eli's. But he didn't let go. Eli's heart pounded. Not from fear, but from pride. Ryan wasn't running this time. Back at the apartment, they collapsed onto the couch, still buzzing from the night. Ryan's head rested on Eli's shoulder, and Eli felt the weight of everything they'd been through. "I'm proud of you," he said, the words slipping out before he could stop them. Ryan looked up, his eyes soft. "I'm trying. For you. For me." Eli kissed him, slow and deep. And for the first time, he felt like they were on the same page. But in the back of his mind, he knew the world outside wouldn't make it easy. The next morning, Ryan got a call from his brother, asking to meet. Eli saw the conflict in Ryan's face, the fear of judgment, but also the need to prove something. "Go," Eli said, squeezing his hand. "You've got this." Ryan nodded. But as he left, Eli couldn't shake the feeling that this was a test, one they might not pass. Ryan came back from meeting his brother looking like he'd been through a war. His eyes were red, his jaw tight. But there was a spark in him Eli hadn't seen before, a quiet strength. He dropped onto the couch next to Eli, silent for a long moment. "How'd it go?" Eli asked, bracing himself. Ryan exhaled, a shaky laugh escaping. He didn't get it. Tried to. Maybe. But, yeah. Told me I'm confused. That I need to fix myself. He shook his head, his voice steady despite the hurt. I told him I'm not broken. For the first time. I believe that. Eli's heart swelled, a mix of pride and love so strong it hurt. He reached for Ryan's hand, intertwining their fingers. "You're not broken," he said softly. "You're you." Ryan's eyes met his, and for the first time, there was no doubt, no hesitation. He leaned in, kissing Eli with a certainty that felt like a promise. It wasn't just a kiss, it was an answer. A commitment to whatever this was. Whatever they could be. The next few weeks were a delicate balance. Ryan found a new job. A coffee shop gig that didn't pay much, but didn't come with bigots throwing punches. Eli's art was gaining traction. A gallery offering him a solo show. They were building something. Not just a relationship, but a life. Piece by fragile piece. There were still hard days. Ryan struggled with the weight of his family's disapproval. The whispers from old friends who didn't understand. Eli faced his own fears. The nagging voice that said this was too good to last. But they talked now. Openly. About the fear. The love. The future. One night, as snow fell outside, blanketing Brooklyn in quiet, they sat on the balcony, wrapped in a shared blanket. Ryan's arm was around Eli, his warmth a steady anchor. "I used to think I had to be one thing," Ryan said, his voice low. "Straight. Tough. Whatever. But with you, I can just be." Eli's throat tightened. He'd spent years hiding his love, convincing himself it was impossible. Now, with Ryan beside him, he felt the weight of that fear lift. "You're enough," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Just you." Ryan smiled. A real smile. The kind that reached his eyes. "I love you, Eli," he said. The words simple but seismic. Eli's heart stopped, then started again. Faster. I love you too, he said, and the words felt like freedom. They stayed there, watching the snow, the city alive and indifferent below them. The world wasn't perfect. There would be more fights, more judgment, more moments of doubt. But in that moment, they had each other, and it was enough. Months later, at Eli's solo show, Ryan stood by his side, proud and unapologetic. The gallery was filled with Eli's work paintings of them, of love, of a journey neither had expected but both had chosen. Friends, strangers, even a few of Ryan's old teammates filled the room. Some curious, some supportive, all witnessing something real. As the night wound down, Ryan pulled Eli into a quiet corner, his hand warm in Eli's. "I'm not going anywhere," he said, his voice steady. "This is where I'm meant to be." Eli looked at him, at the man who'd crashed on his couch and turned his world upside down, and smiled. "Good," he said, "because I'm keeping you." They kissed, soft and sure, in a room full of their story, painted in colors only they could understand. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, Eli wasn't afraid. They'd found each other, against all odds, and that was a truth worth holding on to.